Hey, welcome back to Gold's Garage. So today we got a long story for you. I think you're going to find it interesting. Gold's Garage got scammed is really the title of it. And it's going to start out to be a pretty unhappy story, but it's going to have a good ending. And we'll try to take you through the paces that I went to get there. So back in the winter, I bought a short block assembly complete with cam, oil pan, oil pump, all that stuff. This is it right here. It's all apart now. And from a local machine shop. And the story was the machine shop was going out of business and the engine was built for a customer. And some years ago, like 5 or more years ago, and the customer never came to pick it up, so they had to sell it. So, and I got it, I thought, at a pretty good price. So what I was told was, it's all ready to go. It's already been clearance. It has dome pistons in it, which these are the pistons uh, that were in it. These basically would be called 11-to-1 piston with a standard cylinder head combustion chamber volume. And that it was a 4-bolt main engine. So bolt some heads on it and you're ready to go. The camshaft in it was a comp 12-213-3, which is basically a drag racing cam. It's 244 intake and exhaust at 60 or at 50 thou, which is 6,500 RPM cam. So my choices were this. Bring it home. I actually sat it under the bench here for a few months because I just didn't have time to get to it. And I finally got a little break. I'm waiting on parts. I'm going to have an update on what's going on, by the way. We have the rotating assembly for Tony Guzzo's engine getting balanced right now. So I got a little break that I work on it. And so my choices were this. If everything they told me was correct, bolt some heads on it. It's already got a cam in it. Bolt some heads on it and fire it up and put it on the dyno and go racing or sell it. It's, by the way, this engine is for sale. I bought it on spec to sell it. So that was one option. But if you watch my videos before, you know that one of my themes is check, check, check. Never take anything for granted on an engine. And I didn't know what the clearances in the bearings were, all that stuff. And so instead of bolting heads on it, I took it completely apart. And so you can imagine how I felt when I turned it over and I took the oil pan off. And it's a 2-bolt main engine, not a 4-bolt main engine. Now, that doesn't worry me. You've heard me talk about this before. If you listen to my little story about the Waddell Wilson engines in the 60s, he went 7,000 RPM all day long, Daytona and Talladega and all the rest of those big tracks, making almost 600 horsepower with 2-bolt main engines because there were no 4-bolt main engines until 1969. So it really wouldn't worry me, but if I'm trying to sell an engine with that cam, and if I bolted big aluminum heads on it, it would have made probably 450 horsepower or something like that, but it would have to go 6,500 RPM. So based on a marketing decision, if I'm going to sell it, first question somebody's going to say, is it a 4-bolt main? No, it's a 2-bolt main. So I decided to go a different direction when I saw that it was a 2-bolt main engine. So what we're doing is we're changing the design of the engine. Instead of using, I'd already bought all the aluminum heads and everything for it, but I'll use those on another engine. I have a set of Vortec heads here that I bought a while ago as well that I totally reconditioned, and I've never found a use for them. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to use the Vortec heads. We're not going to use the comp 213 cam that's got 244 degrees of duration. We're using a Summit 1164 cam, which is 224 degrees of duration at 50. Nice, should be a nice street cam. We'll have lots of vacuum. It's still a 466 lift. So with Vortec heads, you have to be aware that there's a limitation to lift on the standard Vortec head. And that 466 is about where that limitation is. So that's about the biggest cam that we can use with Vortec heads. We'll put an aluminum intake manifold on it. And, you know, because I had already had all the parts to build it the other way, now I got to buy, I have the heads, but I need valve covers, I need valve cover gaskets, I need different bolts, a whole bunch of other things that I hadn't planned to do. And so we've done all that. So what it's going to be now is a 350. It's going to have about just under 11 to 1 static compression. And don't get scared by that, because the cam that we're using, the Summit cam that we're using, has a late closing point of 78 degrees after bottom dead center. And that gets our cranking pressure well under 180 psi, probably something between 160 and 170 psi. So it'll be totally safe on pump gas. And we're going to use the 15 thou head gasket, and that's going to give us our quench right in the 40 to 45 thou area. So you'll have nice quench, good compression. The cam I mentioned, 224, 466, nice aluminum intake manifold. And it's going to be a nice engine. So different design than the original cam that we were going to use, which will be a 6,500 RPM cam. The operating range of the cam we're using is 5,200 RPM. So that's makes a nice street motor, have lots of nice low end torque. So the other issue is when I took it apart, I always provide a document. We're going to go over and look at the document for this one, because this is what I do with every engine, is measure every crank pin clearance, main bearing clearance, and dimension and clearance. And so I had to take it apart to do that. The crank was turned, the bore is new, all that stuff is good. The crank's 10 thou under, and the bore is new. But here's the problem when I check the clearances. And I'll just go to the point that's marked in red here. On number 2 cylinder on the number 2 main bearing, sorry, I have 0.7 of a thousandth of cranking clearance. We'll put a screenshot of this spec. The piston clearances are not filled in because I hadn't done it yet. I did do that this morning. They're between 3.5 and 4 thou. And that's fine. They're forged pistons, so that's pretty much perfect. The bore is brand new, pistons are brand new, all that stuff is good. But here would be the issue. And I'll ask you the question. Would you take an engine with 0.7 of a thou of main bearing clearance and the minimum on number 1 cylinder, 0.11 of a thou of connecting rod bearing clearance, and spin at 6,500 RPM? I wouldn't. My minimum, usually I like to get 2 to 2.5 thou of clearance on the rod bearings, and 2.5 to 3 on the main bearings, and loose is better than tight. And so how did that happen? Because if you I go back to my original manual, all the numbers I'm using here come right out of the manual. So the factory specification for the crank pins is taking 10 off now, because it's 10, the crank's turned 10 thou, 2384, 2393, and the average is actually 0.2 of a thou more than the maximum allowed. And so it's not that the bearings are small, it's that the crank is big. The crank is 0.7 of a thou bigger than the maximum. And we'll put a screenshot, you can study these numbers if you're interested in that, if you're a bearing guy. So the real issue is whoever ground this crankshaft grounded on the high side, a little more than the high side. You can look at the numbers. And once again, we're actually more than even the maximum is. And on the main bearings, or on the rod bearings, similar situation where we are, the average should be 0.895, and the average is 0913. So it's actually 1.8 thou over the average. So you can look at those numbers in detail, but the real issue is taking the worst case scenario, 7/10 of a thou of main bearing clearance, 11/10 of a thou rod bearing clearance. Lots of engine builders watch my videos. Like to know what you guys think. Would you take an engine like that and spin at 7,500 or 6,500 RPM? I'm not going to do that. So what do you do about that? Because the crank's already been turned. You don't want to do that again. So you can buy, and I've ordered basically bearings. If you have a crank turned 10 under, you order bearings 10 under. Well, you can actually buy bearings that are 9 thou under instead of 10 thou under. And that'll give me exactly one more thou, or they're called 1 thou extra clearance bearings. And I've used them in lots of applications. Sometimes you use a half of them in an application. If you only need a half a thou, you can do that. So if you take all the numbers that I show on this spreadsheet and add a thou to them, that's what we're going to have. So we're going to take the problem away. Instead of have 7/10, we'll have 17. My minimum is kind of 0.15. So I'll be 0.17 on that one. On the worst case scenario, 0.23. And on the rod bearings, 0.11 is the worst. So it'll be 0.21. So those numbers are okay. They'll be fine with the 1 thou extra clearance bearing. So let me know what you think. If this engine, somebody had just bought it and put heads on it and started it up, would it have lasted? I don't know. You be the give me your opinion on that. I wouldn't take a chance on it. On clearances, more is better than less. If you have a less clearance, you could get in trouble. Engines with 2.5, 3 thou, or even a little bit more than that are fine. As long as you can maintain oil pressure, I wouldn't worry about it. So that's really the story. And we'll put a screenshot of this, like I said. Everything we check is with dial bore gauge and micrometers. So I'm sure my dimensions that I'm showing are accurate, plus or minus 1/10 of a thou. So in the end, what are we going to have? We're going to have a nice engine with Vortec heads, totally reconditioned Vortec heads, a milder cam that's going to be a 5,200 RPM flat tappet hydraulic cam. The nice thing about this Summit cam is it's only 266 lift, but it has lots of duration, advertised duration. It's actually 292, I think, something like that. So that gives you a intake closing point of 78 degrees after bottom dead center. So it makes nice soft ramps, and that makes it easier on the cam, easier on the lifters. And that late closing point takes dynamic compression out of it. And we'll have a nice, safe, straight engine that'll run on pump gas. This engine will be for sale when I get it together. We actually are going to use our June the 8th dyno date. I was going to do Mike's engine on that date, but it's not going to be ready. So we're going to use that June the 8th date. We're going to dyno this engine. So what's it going to do? It's going to make something between 350 and 400 horsepower, and that's as close as I'm going to guess at it. It's going to have good cranking pressure, a nice camshaft, nice intake manifold, all Vortec stuff. So we got a Vortex manifold on the way, poly carburetor, and we should be good to go. So what's the tip of the day? Lesson learned. Check. If I hadn't checked this, just bolted it together with the cam they gave me, spun it on the dyno, is it still making power at 6,000, 6,500 RPM? What would have happened? I don't know. I don't want to know. I know now it's going to be safe. I'm not worried about it. So let me know what you think. So what's going on? Let's go over here and look at. So you already saw a video of Todd Brown's engine. It's still on stand. Not going to the dyno till 13th of July. So it'll be on the stand until I have to put that engine on the stand. The race engine of Mike's is mocked up. It's all been balanced. Everything is here. And Mike's available. Mike's son, Mike, is going to be his engine. And he's a pretty busy guy up there in Sault Ste. Marie. He's got lots going on with his projects. He's got 3 or 4 houses in progress right now. So when he's available to get down here, we're going to put it together and use the subsequent dyno date. This is Tony Guzzo's engine. And so what's going on with it was The rotating assembly is at Atchison machine right now. We've already done all the clearances. They come out really, really nice. We'll document that in more detail later. I got Tom Winkler coming later today. We're going to file fit the piston rings. So a week from now, I should have all the rotating assembly parts back. The rings will be file fit, and the heads are going to Bill Little. We got 2 sets of heads, and 1 set's been ported. I don't know who or how or when, but I checked combustion chamber volume yesterday, and there's been some porting done even in the chamber. So we're going to go to Bill Little's next week, and we're going to make a video of Bill putting this ported head and the unported head on the flow bench and see how they perform and see what we need to do to them to get some performance for Tony. And we haven't exactly decided on a cam yet, but we're looking at the idea is we want to make sure we duplicate the original sound and performance of a 68 Z28. So they had lots of duration. They had, I don't know if people realize that, those original Dunt-off cams had over 300 degrees of duration, advertised 240 something at 50. They were lots of duration. That's how they get that cool sound. So we're going to look at what we have to do, and we'll keep you updated on that. And that's it for today. Let me know what you think. Please subscribe. I need subscribers to keep me going, because that's how it makes making the YouTube videos make sense. And give me your comments. What do you think about my decisions on the 350? And it is going to be for sale. We'll be dynoing it on June the 8th. Let's watch for it. Thanks for watching Gold's Garage.